In 2025, a movie made for $80 million beat Titanic. Not in one country. Not in one region. At the global box office, where Hollywood has ruled for a century, a Chinese animated film about a boy demon with fire wheels on his feet walked in, sat down, and rewrote the entire record book. $2.2 billion. The highest-grossing animated film in history. The fifth highest-grossing film of all time. The first animated film to ever cross $2 billion. Ever. And most of you, if you're watching this from Europe, have probably never seen it. That ends today. This is Ne Zha 2. And it might be the most important animated film made in the last 20 years. Let me tell you exactly why. Before we get into the sequel, let's quickly talk about what Ne Zha actually is, because this is not a story DreamWorks invented. This is a legend that's been alive in China for over 400 years. Ne Zha originates from a 16th-century Chinese novel called Investiture of the Gods, a mythology so dense and rich it makes Greek mythology look like a short story. Ne Zha is a boy deity, born from the essence of a demon orb, given extraordinary power, and feared by the world around him. A child who never asked to be different, but was cursed to be. Sound familiar? Chosen one. Outcast. Destined for something he didn't choose. The 2019 first film took that legend and turned it into a story about defying destiny, and it made $726 million worldwide, making it the biggest animated film in Chinese history at the time. Then director Jiaozi, whose name, by the way, literally means dumpling, spent 5 more years making the sequel. 5 years. 4,000 animators. 138 animation companies. Over 2,400 shots. 1,900 of which are pure special effects. The result is Ne Zha 2. And what they made isn't just a sequel. It's a statement. Point 1. The animation in Ne Zha 2 is some of the finest ever committed to a screen. And that is not a hyperbole. Let's talk about what they actually built here. Director Jiaozi and his team didn't just upgrade the visuals from the first film, they rebuilt the entire visual language of Chinese animation from scratch. The character textures now have fine layers of hair on skin, making them feel tangible and alive in a way that most Western animation still hasn't cracked. The water physics, and there is a lot of water in this film, are so detailed, so physically convincing, that critics compared them to watching a nature documentary. The foam. The refraction. The way light bends through a wave mid-battle. The film blends styles in a way nobody expected. There's core CGI, yes, but layered into it are sequences rendered in 2D anime style, and others painted in traditional Chinese inkwash aesthetic. In a single film, you're watching 3 different art traditions speaking to each other fluently. And then there's the final battle. The final battle sequence contains over 200 million independently moving animated characters. 200 million. The largest armies in film history are usually a few hundred CGI soldiers copy-pasted. This film animated 200 million individually. Even Western audiences would feel shocked to see the level of quality of the animation. That's not a fan saying that. That's one of the film's executive producers. And they are right. Point 2. Ne Zha 2 is not just a spectacle film. It's a story about what you owe to the people who love you, and what happens when the world decides your fate before you've had a chance to live it. The film picks up directly after the first. Ne Zha and his friend Ao Bing, a dragon prince, have both had their physical bodies destroyed by heavenly lightning. Their souls survive, but barely. They have 1 week to complete a series of mythological trials to earn new bodies before Ao Bing's spirit dissolves forever. But it's not just about the quest. It's about what's underneath it. Ao Bing sacrifices his newly rebuilt body to protect Ne Zha's family in the film's early act, and for the rest of the movie, the 2 boys are literally sharing 1 body. 1 soul in, 1 soul out. Ne Zha gives up control of his own physical form to let his friend fight, rest, breathe. That's not an action movie premise. That's a metaphor for what real friendship costs. And then there's Ne Zha's mother, Lady Yin. Her arc in this film, specifically a scene near the end involving a sacrifice, will break you open. Not because it's manipulative, but because the film has spent 2 movies earning it. The moment Lady Yin makes her choice, you feel every second of the 5 years the animators spent building to it. Ne Zha's journey shifts in this film from, "I will defy my destiny," to, "I will protect the people who believed in me when nobody else did." That's not just character growth. That's the full arc of growing up. Point 3. Ne Zha 2 isn't just an animated film. It's a cultural earthquake, and the reverberations are still being felt. When this film dropped in China on Chinese New Year 2025, it made $137 million in its first 3 days. By day 6, it had crossed $550 million. It surpassed Star Wars, The Force Awakens' single territory record in 11 days. The Force Awakens took 165 days to set that record. But here's what makes Ne Zha 2 more than a box office story. For decades, the global animation conversation has been dominated by 2 voices, Hollywood and Japan. Pixar defined what emotional animated storytelling looked like. Studio Ghibli defined what beauty and restraint could do. Everything else was in their shadow. Ne Zha 2 didn't ask for a seat at that table. It built a bigger table. It proved that a story rooted entirely in Chinese mythology, Chinese aesthetics, and Chinese emotional values, with no concessions to Western taste, no cross-cultural compromises, no American character added for relatability, could become the biggest animated film in human history. The most local story became the most universal one. That's not just good for Chinese cinema. That's good for every filmmaker in every country who was told their stories were too specific, too cultural, too niche to matter globally. Here's the thing most people miss when they talk about Ne Zha 2's success. Everyone wants to explain it. Some say it's nationalism. Some say it's the timing, Lunar New Year, no Hollywood competition. Some say it's the budget, the technology, the spectacle. And sure, all of those things are true. But they are not the reason. The reason Ne Zha 2 made $2.2 billion is much simpler and much more uncomfortable for the film industry to admit. It's a genuinely great movie. Not great for a Chinese film. Not surprisingly good for animation. Great. It has a hero whose emotional journey is earned, not explained. It has a villain whose motivation makes painful sense. It has friendship that feels real because it costs something. It has action sequences that are not just visually overwhelming but emotionally charged. You're not just watching a fight, you're watching 2 people's fates collide. The industry looked at $2.2 billion and asked, how did this happen? The audience looked at $2.2 billion and said, because we watched it twice. So, should you watch Ne Zha 2? Yes. Obviously yes. That's not even a question. The first one first. I know, there's always a first one. But Ne Zha 2 opens with a very brief recap and you'll manage either way. The first film is excellent and it makes the sequel hit twice as hard. Watch it in the best quality you can find. This is a film that was designed for IMAX. It deserves the biggest screen available to you. And then come back and tell me in the comments what scene hit you hardest. Because if you've already seen it, you know exactly which one I'm talking about. And if you haven't, you will. Ne Zha 2 is proof that the future of animation doesn't belong to any one studio, any one country, or any one tradition. It belongs to whoever has the courage to tell their story like it's the only story worth telling. Jiaozi and 4,000 animators told theirs. $2.2 billion people agreed. Subscribe if you want to keep watching great animation get the attention it deserves. Next up, we're talking about the film that started China's animation revolution, the original Ne Zha. See you there.